Do you know it's that time of year when people start telling stories to try and frighten the crap out of each other? Halloween and all that, the witching season. Well, what happens if the story is actually true? Speke. It's been a housing estate for about what? Nigh on 80 years. Truth be told, about 80 years, yeah. And down the years, this estate, it's had its fair share. It's had its fair share. The one that sticks in my mind has to be Lancelot Jack. I'll tell you why he was called Lancelot Jack later. But he was a bad man. He was a bad man. If memory serves, I think he had... Yeah, it was his left arm. His left arm finished at the elbow. That was it. Stump. Never explained. His right arm was the one. Powerful, powerful right arm. I mean, the man was a big man. He had to be at least 6 foot. Built like the proverbial shithouse, you know what I mean? But this arm... Now in the early days when we first... Well, it was when we lived in Garston, actually. We lived in Garston. When we first started hearing tales of him. It was the... do you remember those Chandler's vans that used to come round? And they used to have the sharpening wheel in the back. They'd be flogging stuff, but they'd also sharpen your knives. And my mum would often send me and our Freddie out. A couple of knives and her main carving knife, a Sunday roast. Go and get them sharpened, she'd say. Go and get them sharpened. A couple of coppers. Now while the geezer was doing it, he'd be spinning these yarns about this character up in Speke called Lancelot Jack. Yeah, we used to go, oh for fuck's sake, what's he on about? Lancelot Jack. I mean, even though we're 8, 9, 10 years old, wasn't going to frighten us with tales. Well, anyway. Years went by. Another 5 or 6 years went by. And we keep hearing these little tales, like. And then we actually moved up to Speke. Well, that's when things really did start to get interesting. Really. I'm telling you. Okay. I can hear you asking, why Lancelot Jack? Well, it was just, I think it was typical Scouse graveyard humour that gave him that name. Lancelot, Arthurian legend, great with the sword, great with the lance, great at cutting. And Jack. Well, you don't need me to tell you about Jack, do you? There's only one Jack that we're interested in here. Halloween. Mr. Ripper himself. Lancelot Ripper. Slash, hack, cut, blood, tomato sauce everywhere. He was your man. As I say, when we were kids, we'd heard these tales. Thought nothing of it. Then we moved over to Speke. And things did start to get interesting then. The rumours persisted, but nothing could ever be proved. I mean, he started off light. The odd cat, the odd dog, the odd rabbit, go missing. Family pets, never to be seen again. Not a sight of them, to be honest, nothing. It might have had something to do with the fact that at the time the Ford Road was still being constructed. Loads of burial space, you know what I mean? Loads of burial space. Nobody'd ever know. I think that's why he progressed from the pets, from animals, to animals of the higher order, namely ourselves. The odd lady of the night went missing. Sadly, not too many gave too much thought to that. The police did. And then there was the odd drunk. You see, because his stamping ground was round about top end of Eastern Avenue, Eastern Avenue, down to Alderwood, and then over towards the back, towards the mains. Square, with flats either side, East Mains, West Mains. That seemed to be his stamping ground. Anybody out late at night, down that end, chances were. And certainly over the period of a few years, people did go missing, never to be seen again. Now, it was always this time of year, round about Halloween, the beginning of winter, well, the beginning of autumn. Clock changed, night came in quicker. He was having a field day. He was having a field day. You see, we've got a unique situation on our hands here with Lancelot. We really have. I mean, the man's done nothing wrong on the surface. Pets, animals disappeared in the early days. Then the odd human being went missing. And because the man lived central to the area where all these things were taking place, and he was a bit strange, it fell on him. The police always knocking on his door because the man looked strange. I suppose you could say it was unfair. Say it was in the early days before DNA testing, so I don't suppose they could do much there if he cleared all the blood away. But here's a poser. If none of the animals or the human beings that were killed were ever found, nobody actually was attacked and lived to tell the tale. There was just no proof that it was him, and there was just no proof as to what had happened to these poor souls. So, how could we know how he was doing it? Well, I know. Cheers, everybody. We know he had this stumpy left arm. What he was doing, he'd attach a spike, not a hook or a dagger, but a fucking 9-inch long solid fucking steel spike. Lethal weapon it was. He'd cover it up and he'd go out. Now what he'd do is he'd have his man, because he would have watched them for days, gets the routine, knows where they're going, what they do. Right, time to do the job. He'd walk up quite calmly, quite quietly, put his muscular right arm around their shoulder. Before they knew what was happening, he's whipped them round, impaling them on the spike. Fucking no messing. 30 seconds dead. Vital organs. The man knew what he was doing. Bang. You see, the thing is, during the summer months, well, it's getting dark, 10, 11 o'clock at night, most people are out late, most people are out walking, sunny days. He was no different. He was often seen walking the streets till all hours. But he never interfered with anybody. He was a regular face. Every other day people would see him out and about. They'd stay clear of him because the man was strange. But it wasn't unusual to see him out and about. Now the same was true in autumn as well. Come the changing of the hour, they still saw him out and about. Why should it be any different? Just because it was getting darker earlier? But it was round about this time that he started wearing the spike. Obviously nobody had seen him going out ready for work, but once the early nights came in, that was it. Again, a poser. If nobody survived and no bodies were found, how come I can sit here talking about how he was doing it? See if you can come up with an answer for the next time we speak. Bet you don't. Cheers. I think at this stage it's worth pointing out that Lancelot Jack died before ever coming to trial. Well, before ever being actually accused in writing of a crime. But the manner of his death, I think it gave the police a fair indication of what had been going on. He was found in his flat. He had a little flat just round the corner from West Mains. And he was found one morning, and it appeared that he'd fallen out of bed and he'd landed on this spike. It was in some sort of strap rigmarole down by the side of his bed, and it appeared that he must have rolled over, bang, straight onto the spike. What is it they say, hoisted on your own petard? And that was the end of it. But it's not the end of the story, because as I said a couple of nights ago, Halloween is all about trying to shock, trying to frighten. And in doing so, what I've been trying to do is relate a true story. But so far it's been a narrative. It's just been events as they unfolded, rather than the nitty gritty, rather than why you and you and you should be afraid over the next couple of nights. Certainly Thursday evening, I wouldn't venture out, especially if you live down towards the Mains and down that area, down the top end of Eastern Avenue and round Alderwood area that way, you know, where the old the old flying saucer used to be. It's not the saucer now. What is it called now, that pub? Or, I don't know, it could, I couldn't see it affecting people over the Walton Way, over Blundell Sands and that way over. Nah, I can't see it. But, I think the tale I've still got to relate with respect to Lancelot Jack, it's not over and done with yet. I think the real surprise and the real fright is yet to come. I mean, the last 2 or 3 chapters have just been a narrative, really. What have we said? Again, as I say, the police, when they found him, they could only assume that he had been up to no good. But again, they couldn't prove it. So the man fell on a fucking spike. So what? Right, I've had me cocoa. Cocoa, my ass. I'm off to bed. Now tomorrow night is Halloween Eve, innit? Is that the way to say it? The night before? I think possibly we might wrap this up tomorrow. You need to know the full score. I mean, Jack died. How the fuck do I know what he was up to? I've told you how he was doing it. How could I know? Tomorrow. Right, out for me bed. I had this mate called Jimmy many moons ago. Lad passed away earlier this year, actually. To get to their house, I'd have to go through the mains. I'd have to walk through the mains. Funny enough, I had another mate down there that actually lived on the mains, Joey. Still lived at home with his dad, Bert. But to get through to Jimmy's, you'd have to walk through the mains. One day, bright sunshine day, I'm coming back from Jim's and it turns the corner into the bottom of the mains. And who the fuck do you think I bump into? Old Lancelot, just walking along. Almost bumped into each other. So me, I just said, hello, you alright? As you do. And he looked stunned. He looked absolutely stunned. I think it's probably because not many people would speak to him, really, and the only people that used to speak to him were the little fuckers down the street, the kids that would shout after him, shout names. So to have somebody, a young adult at the time, to stop and talk to him, took him by surprise. Anyway, my bottle nearly went. Left it, walked on. Didn't it happen 3 or 4 times again over the next fortnight, 3 weeks? Alright, how are you doing? Fine. Walk on. Then one day he actually stopped and started talking to me. Asked me name, asked me what I was doing down that end of Speak. Told him, you know, I had a mate, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh yeah, nice. He was very, for a big man, very quiet, very calmly spoken. But then again, I suppose most nutters are, aren't they? Anyway, this went on, it must have been, what was it? It must have been May, June time. Do you know what, by the time the end of July came, he asked me round to the flat for a cuppa. I thought, well look, it's middle of the day. I said to him, look, I tell you what, I said, I'll come round for a cuppa, but I'm not stopping. Half hour or so. I said, and I'll ring me mum, let her know where I am. Me mum, fucking hell, I'm a young adult. He said, no problem. He said, you know, you do what you have to do. He said, we started a little sort of session then. It must have been about 6 or 8 weeks. I was going round there now and again for a cup of tea. And believe it or not, he opened right up, telling me the full SP about his operation. Well, not quite, tell a lie. He never ever told me where the bodies were. Never ever. Now you're looking at me, I know you're looking at me and thinking, well, fuck you now, didn't you go to the police? I had his word for it, didn't I? No bodies, still no bodies. Then again, you know, I was having a bit of fun. I was actually having a bit of fun. So I thought, well, no, let's see where this goes. And he was telling me about he's walking around during the summer months. Was a purposeful thing. Visibility, he said. Visibility. You got to have visibility. He said, and then when you get up to what you want to do, then you become invisible. Well, it's strange, but I could see his point, I suppose. Doesn't matter whether it's day or night, if people see you on the street with regularity, they expect it, you know. And okay. Now, Jimmy, me mate round the corner, his mum was bedridden. And I don't know, I've been fortunate, I've never been in that position, but I would imagine when you're bedridden, it must be very difficult to sleep because you're there and you're probably nodding off all day and you know. Hilda did have a problem and she was given sleeping tablets for it. One day, an idea formulated in my mind. It was autumn. The nights had come in. Queer fellow was probably out doing his. Now I knew that if he was doing it, he would have to get home fairly early in the morning and he'd have to be fairly fucking shacked out, you know what I mean? So, Hilda, box of tablets, away I went. And I thought, what I'll do is I'll get up fairly early one morning, take a trip down and catch him. I gauged it, you know, I gauged it. I tried to gauge what time he was likely to be home. So I got down there and again it's autumn, so it's getting light. What, at past 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So I walked down just before 7 o'clock, just before it's getting light. Sure enough, his whole light was on. Pills in my pocket. Pills in my pocket. Right, before we continue, I must make an apology. That crashing sound at the back end of the last chapter, that was just me slamming the freezer shut. There was a little job I hadn't quite completed. Needed to shut the freezer. Again, if it frightened you, if it made you start to crash, I do apologise. Just closing the freezer. It's awful when you forget to finish the job, isn't it? You know, when you... Annoying. I could curse myself. That one. Yeah, nah. Now then. Now, where were we? Yeah. So, I goes round this morning, pills in pocket. Sure enough, the man lets me in. Didn't even think it was strange that I was coming round at that time in the morning. He got so used to me now, I suppose. Cup of tea, I says. He says, yeah, I'm just going to jump into bed. He said, I hope you don't mind. I said, not at all. I said, I'll bring you a cup of tea and a slice in a minute, okay? He said, yeah, and thanked me, and away he went. Give him 5 minutes, kettle brewed. Hilda's tablets. The whole fucking box. Bang. Don't know, I mean, it must have been about 8, 10 of them. Sleeping tablets, is that too many? But anyway, into his cuppa. Goes in, gives him his cuppa and his slice. Takes a look, I notice his hook down the side of the bed, sitting upright. Oh bloody hell, that's dangerous. Anyway, within a matter of minutes he's asleep, out like a light. Now me, I'm only short, but I consider myself fairly, you know, fairly robust. Shoving him across the bed, bit of a struggle. Gets him to the edge and I'm thinking, well, the spike's there, but how can I be sure that when I roll him over onto it, it won't tipple over? Quick one, runs into the bog, gets his bog brush holder, little bit of a tube on the bottom, clams the spike in, puts it back, heave-o, 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 wallop, off the bed, bang, straight onto the spike, no fucking messing. Bit of a job getting the spike back out of the bog brush holder, you know, because I mean that made it look a bit obvious, didn't it? Managed to do that. I had a quick look around, I hadn't left anything. Hilda's pillbox in my pocket. Wiped the kettle down and got off. And that was it. Word got round after a day or two that he'd been found dead. Nobody thought any more of it because he'd fallen on his own spike. Now why didn't I go to the police? Again, I couldn't do really, could I? I mean, they put 2 and 2 together now anyway with the spike. But the point is, my little sessions with him had given me an idea. Alright, this idea wouldn't come to fruition until many years later. I mean, in the meantime, I'd moved away from home, had a family, moved away, family grew up, come back home. And then, you know, the old plan of my own started coming to fruition then. I goes on Facebook. I'm on Facebook quite a bit. And a number of times, this fucking blood, the number of times I would see some poor lad being nagged by a woman, be it his wife, his sister, his girlfriend. I thought, bloody hell. And then you know what? Suddenly dawned on me. There's Lancelot Jack. He's got his drunks and his girls of the night. Now I don't understand why he killed either of them really. I mean the girls of the night, I've got nothing against them because I mean the girl that comes in to do for me, Fifi, I mean she's a nice girl, she's very tender, doesn't charge too much, so you know, couldn't see why he was going for them. But nagging wives and girlfriends, I thought, hang on a minute. And then my mind went back to what Lancelot told me all those years ago about visibility. So what I did was, I started going out in the afternoons, all over the place, with my camera and a tripod. And I'd be down Speak Hall, and I'd be down Oglet Shore and up the Lighthouse and Runcorn Bridge and places, you know, Allerton Towers, all over the place. And whilst I was taking these photographs over the months, and it's been a couple of years now, I also started letting my hair grow. Because a man my age, come on, long hair, how strange is that? And I'm developing a persona. Oh, there's that fucking old fella again, the strange fella with the long hair and his camera. And they used to see me out during the day. And they'd see me out at night as well because I'd even put them up on here. on Facebook, sunsets, and they began to sort of accept me. I hope that blood comes out. They began to accept me, no matter what time of day, time of night. Now, I'm ready to go live now, this autumn. I've taken on board and always remembered what Lancelot Jack told me about visibility and invisibility and how to do this and how to do that. Okay, I don't have his strength. I can't use a spike, but I think I can develop my own methods. I don't think I'll have too much trouble. Now, the only problem I've got now is, where do I start? Is it the mains? Is it Walton, Brundle Sands? Is it Garston? I mean, God knows there's enough nagging women, wives, sisters, girlfriends, down west, Eastern Avenue way, down towards the old Flying Saucer. I'm not mentioning any names, but there's one or two of them that are top of the list. As I say, this autumn, this Halloween, is going to be me tester, me trial. And again, as I say, I don't know where Lancelot hid his bodies, but I'll make a start with the big freezer I've got. I mean, that's, you know, it's where I'm going to start. Now, where I get rid of them is another matter. I don't know yet. But again, you see, we're living in a more PC world now. It's acceptable to look strange going round the streets. I'm not going to stick out like a sore thumb. I really do think I can get away with it the same as Lancelot Jack did. What do you reckon, folks? What do you think I should start down the mains? What do you reckon, chaps? All you fellas that have got those nagging women, do I start there? I'll be seeing you, ladies. I'll be seeing you.